and welcome to the Self Storage Made Simple podcast. My guest this week, he's someone that has jumped up on the scene in the self-storage business. Was lucky enough to meet him out in Vegas in April at the ISS show. Him and his partners were out there with some new technology that is making some interesting inroads for me. I loved it the first second I saw it. I've been using it ever since very effectively in my search for raw land, but super excited to talk a little bit of data and a little bit of machine learning with Jean-Michel Diei, the CEO of Proprise. Jean-Michel, thanks so much for coming and spending some time with us.
Thaddeus, what a great intro you just did there. So great.
That's it. I'm done now. I'm signing off. It's over. I did my job.
Oh my God. Appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on and finding me valuable to share with your audience.
You know that from like a week after I got a hold of you guys' data platform, I've been like espousing the wonders of it. And I'm always kind of like, I always want to introduce you to people because I think it's super powerful. So we'll dig into that. But I always start this podcast the same way. And no matter how much I like your platform, I'm not changing it. How do you get into self-storage? How did you guys find yourselves, especially you with a brand new data platform, getting into this space?
Yeah, I get that question quite often, and it's a very good question because self-storage is a very family-centric business, as it sounds like, from what I can see. And so I'm a little bit of an outsider, hopefully to also become integrated into the family here. And so my background is in AI, machine learning. I've been studying AI. I got my master's degree 10 years ago, a couple years ago. I've been studying AI for 10 years though. Worked at big tech companies like Microsoft, Stripe, things like that. But while I was doing that, I wanted to invest into real estate. My parents invest in single family homes. My dad develops multifamily properties. And I knew I wanted to also invest in myself in real estate. So I got into buying my own single family homes. That's how it started. But through that, I attended so many different industry events, real estate meetups, learning from folks who invest in like mobile home parks, which I didn't even think was a thing at the time, investing in storage. And so eventually I got kind of bored working at my 9-to-5 job. I wanted to build a company. And so I thought what the best place would be to like combine both my passions of AI and real estate together. And so initially my partner and I decided to build a data company that helped mobile home park investors, because at the time I was obsessed with mobile home parks in that space. And a lot of our clients were interested in self-storage. We're also pursuing self-storage as an asset class, and we're encouraging us to buy or do data in that space as well. And so it wasn't just self-storage. We also had some options of like IOS, so industrial outdoor storage, as well as RV and boat storage. So we talked to the large REITs or the big players in both of those industries, or all those three industries, actually at the beginning of January of this year. And essentially we made the decision, hey, like we said, self-storage seems a bit more sophisticated. There's more people here who need data, who want data, who are currently ingesting data. And so we felt it was best to start in the self-storage industry. And from February on it's been a wild ride.
It literally blows my mind because I didn't know that decision was made in January of this year. I met you at the beginning of April, right? A couple, 3 months later. And you guys already had your platform built out. Obviously, it's been evolving constantly since then, but really a quick turnaround between when you decided to go self-storage and when you built the tools to be able to go and scrape data and get a bunch of deep information.
Yeah, we decided just to go all in. And it's great because I think we've seen other players in this space, and we knew that certain data was very important to brokers, to acquisitions folks, developers. And so we had we knew that this was possible to collect this information. It's just a matter of time. And we decided to put all our resources towards building a new tool in this space.
So I'm going to circle back and we're going to let our viewers dig in and see, for those of you who haven't seen Proprise, even maybe some of those who have been introduced to it, but I want to have Jean-Michel take us through it again because I believe in the power of the tool for a couple of specific reasons. There's some tools out there that do one of two things, right? There's Crexi and CoStar, or LoopNet if you want to do it for free, where you can go and look at all the real estate listings. You can even deeper dive into raw land that is unlisted if you want to. And then you have your Radius Plus, your Store Track, your Yardi, your other platforms where you can get data. whether it's demographic data or it's data specific to storage as far as saturation and maybe development pipeline. Where I found you guys so powerful and where I thought it was such a, and I talk to you about this all the time. The big thing for me was time savings. It was the thing that was missing for me from the other platforms. Not that I don't still use them, because I do, because they're still functional and they still help, but they were missing the ability to input my buy box to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want this number of population. I want this number of median income. I want this level of saturation lower than whatever number that might be. Maybe I want this area of the country if I'm specific that way. And for you guys to be able to create something where I can input that data and all of a sudden get spit out the places that fit that criteria, I thought it was amazing.
Right, right, exactly. So yeah, so essentially what Thaddeus said, we said, man, it's what we're trying to do here is make everything we do as actionable as possible. So yes, we can give you demographics, we can give you areas where there's give you data on like the population or square feet per capita, but how can we make it as actionable as possible and get you your end result, which is more deals done every single year. So that's kind of like the driving narrative of everything we build, all the features that we build here at PropPrize. We want to get the developers, the acquisitions folks, more deals. So we want to eliminate a lot of the time that they're spending on the things that I think is a bit more manual and where computers can, automate for them on their behalf.
I love that train of thought. And I'd obviously had heard of AI and heard of machine learning, but never seen it in my job the way that you guys brought it to me. So I'm going to circle back. As I said, we'll give you a chance to demonstrate and show people a little bit about what PropRise can do. But before we go into that, a couple of questions just from your introduction when I asked you how you got into storage. A couple of things that leapt out as questions. The first one I'm going to ask you is your parents investing in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? How did they get the bug to do that? And then how important was that for you to have that coming from your family?
That is such a huge, huge question. I've never gotten asked that. And actually, I've never even thought about it. So now I'm thinking back in my childhood, why they decided to do real estate. So my parents, so caveat, my parents come from a country called Cote d'Ivoire. It's Ivory Coast in English. It's a West African country right next to Ghana. And so when they came to the US, they came here in 1995 or so when they're roughly 25, 26. And then at the time, they were interested in computers. Both of them were computer engineers studying computer engineering. They went to school at University of Minnesota, Twin Cities in the computer engineering. Didn't know English, so they had to learn English. My dad barely knew a lick of it and had to understand a bit there. But essentially at the time, in the late 90s, mid 90s, tech and computers were blowing up. And so most of their friends and all of their jobs were, all in the Bay Area. As you can tell, they eventually moved down to the Bay Area. That's where I was born. I was born in Mountain View here in California in 1997. And so all their friends started buying condos, buying houses here. And they told my parents to also buy some real estate there too. And unfortunately, they decided not to do that. They were just renting and they just wanted to save their money. And sure enough, they realized the big, big mistake they made, not buying real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 90s. They missed out on like 10x or sometimes even 20x on houses. So in I would say middle of the 2000s, 2005, 2006, so my parents started just moving around the country and just buying the houses instead of renting. So we moved to Colorado. They bought a house there. We moved we spent some time in Iowa, Des Moines, bought a house there, Atlanta. And that's just how they kind of operated. It was just as a necessity. Like they didn't want to spend money on rent. They just wanted to buy. And then they just decided to rent it out as they moved out of those houses. So that's kind of how it started. And eventually my dad just loved it. So while he still was an engineer, he was passionate, probably even now today, as passionate as ever, doing development. So building multifamily properties internationally. So that's kind of what he does now. And I think I got the bug from him, and I decided to also pursue a little bit of that in my own way.
I love that. All right, I'd be remiss right now. You mentioned the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. I'm not going to try and pronounce it as smooth as you do, but I'm a huge Tottenham Hotspur fan, so I'm a soccer guy. I know we geeked out over this a little while ago because the African Cup of Nations was back in the spring, and
Yep.
Yves Bissouma, who's a big player for Tottenham, plays for the Ivory Coast. So I'd be remiss if I didn't go down the road of soccer and your love of soccer.
Oh, I love soccer. I think for me going back, so I went back home to Cote d'Ivoire maybe when I was 11, 10 years old. And at the time I was okay at soccer, but not the best. But just spending a summer in Africa where all you're doing from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is outside barefoot playing soccer, you definitely get better. So first I got dunked on every single day, but eventually you start, leveling up. And when I came back to the States, America, I was just like far above every other, I guess, American kid at the time. And I realized the big difference in soccer, how soccer is perceived outside of America. But yeah, I think I actually, during, like, this was December of last year, I spent some time in Cote d'Ivoire as well. So it's been a while since I've been back. And unfortunately, I came back to America early January, like the first week. But my mom stayed throughout the whole month of January, and the finals of the African Cup was, I think, end of January. And so Abidjan, the country or the capital of Cote d'Ivoire, was actually hosting the African Cup. And during the end of January was like the finals. It was Abidjan versus or Cote d'Ivoire versus, I think it was Nigeria. I forget the country they're going against. And luckily for the country, they won. They won the cup, and I think everyone was so excited. They were partying until like 6 a.m. There was nonstop fireworks, nonstop partying, nonstop drinking. I didn't get to attend or partake in any of these activities, but I was
Little
just watching from the
FOMO.
sidelines here in America. Yeah.
That's too funny. All right, I'm cutting this off now because the only next place to go is the U.S. and the Copa America, where we got absolutely trounced. So your
Yeah.
experience with the Ivory Coast significantly more fun than mine this summer. We're gonna switch back. We went a little sidetracked with soccer, which is okay, but we're gonna come back into self storage a little bit. And I want to so where I wanted to go from there. You talked about going to a bunch of different events, right? Going to real estate meetups and I thought that was really powerful. Tell me how important that's been to you and what you've gotten out of like going and getting an education firsthand in those type of events.
Yeah, I just realized just talking to people was the best way I could get insight on what people are actually doing. How do I make the most out of real estate investing or just learn new strategies? And that actually came to me because while I was doing my master's degree, I was studying for my AI degree, but I was obsessed with this podcast called the Bigger Pockets podcast. Maybe you've heard of it. I think I've listened to over 1,000 podcast episodes, like every single one at the time. I was obsessed. But over time, like they mentioned all the time going to different meetups. And so when I moved away from college, and I was getting some interest in real estate, purchasing my own properties, I needed to network and learn more from other people in the space. And so I went to different meetups, meetup.com or Facebook groups was how I found these meetups. And I got to talk to many very wealthy, very successful real estate investors, folks who are, have $400 million in assets under management, or even people who are just one step above me, maybe just had 10 doors or investing, nationwide here and there, and just learning from everybody and like what their path was, how they're thinking about investing, what are interesting strategies they're using, whether they're doing Airbnb investments or house hacking. It was very insightful to me to learn how creative you can be on just like a building, and so that was really exciting to me.
Love that. And so that then got you guys to the place where, you hear about mobile home parks, you eventually hear about self-storage. Tell me a little bit about your partner, right? Matthew Krager's his name, and you guys. I want to know how you guys found each other because you're a Carnegie Mellon guy. I don't know if you did your master's there, but that's where you did your
Yeah.
undergraduate work. By the way, just random side note: one of only three colleges I looked at when I was an undergrad. I ended up getting into Tufts early decision, so I never applied, but I did look at it. So a little shared connection
There you
there.
go.
Krager went to Harvey Mudd out in California in Claremont. How did you guys end up connecting?
Yeah, and just correction there. I went to undergrad in Purdue out in
Got it.
Indiana,
Okay, good.
and then my master's degree was at Carnegie Mellon, where I
Perfect.
focused on
Yep.
AI. And then yeah, so he's from Huntington Beach here in Southern California. Got his degree down here too, and both of us worked at the same company. It's called Stripe. It's a fintech company. It's very successful. And at the time, we didn't really know each other. We got connected because my high school friend was really close with Matthew Krager. And this high school friend was entrepreneurial, knew that I was also entrepreneurial. Like I was building side projects and businesses on the side after work. Same thing with Krager. He was working 9 to 5 and also building side stuff after work. And so he's like, you guys should definitely connect. Like you guys are literally the same people. So I think this was in 2021. He said you guys should just meet up. And every single week since then, we would just talk for an hour, talking about our side projects, what we're doing, how we're thinking about sales and marketing, where are we failing, okay, and then kind of also it was like a therapy session, so making sure we don't give up and all of these things. And just through that process, we realized, okay, both of us are technical. We can build products and build businesses ourselves. We're like itching for something. We're not just content just doing our 9 to 5s. And that gave us encouragement to be like, hey, I trust you to do something together. And so eventually, once our independent projects kind of winded down, it felt natural to do something together.
I'm so inspired by that. I'm 50 years old now. The clock's a little bit ahead in my life than you guys, but I think back to my 20s and this idea that you're doing side hustles, you're working on something bigger than what your 9 to 5 job is. And then I the thing that jumped out at me the most about that is that you then connect to somebody else who supports that mission. How
Mm-hmm.
important was that for you?
Oh, it's so important. I think that's like the biggest thing in building a new company or building anything new. Having a partner to help you is invaluable. So, for example, well, one in the startup ecosystem, we're here in the Bay Area. One of the biggest reasons that our mentors tell us why startups fail is because not because of money, it's because of co-founders having a clash or a conflict of interest or something. And so, being aligned with the co-founder is so important. Another big thing is one of my roommates has been an entrepreneur. He has a very successful business, but he's a solo founder. He's been doing it by himself for the past 6 years. I could just tell how painful it was to just be solo, have all these very big decisions you're making. There's no one to bounce ideas off of. And even if you're stressed or confused, you can't really tell your team that because you don't want them to see that the
Yeah.
company's like, messing up in any kind of way. You want to put on a front. So there's no, I guess, feedback loop there if you want some help. And so having someone next to me where we're both aligned and we can talk to each other about our problems, I guess it's a little bit like therapy. It's been really, really powerful for us to kind of carry on. So where I'm feeling down, he's feeling up, and that's been a great balance for us.
So interesting. I spent, I don't know, 12 years of my adult life running a martial arts school by myself as a, solopreneur essentially. It was a business. I was an entrepreneur. But when I mentor younger guys about it, I'm like, find a partner because it is brutal to try. And you said it, right? It's decision fatigue. You have all these things
Yep.
and then you have to be the fearless leader. So very, very cool for me to see younger guys that have got that piece figured out because I burnt out, right? I 10, 11, I guess I was 11 years in and
Wow.
it was burnout. Like I was working 60, 80, 100 hours a week. And even if I was at home, it was still overwhelming because you had
Yeah.
decisions you had to make all the time. So really, really cool that you have that piece that you've kind of answered already. All right, I've teased enough. I told everyone I was going to let you show this incredible platform that you have. Share your screen and take us through a little bit about PropRise and what it is and what it does and I'll kind of chime in when I think I have something to add, but I want you to kind of take us through the power of the tool.
Yeah, I can start sharing my screen here. Let me go into the window. Oop, okay, here we go. So PropRise, well, what PropRise is, it's a platform that, in simple terms, we help you find deals a bit faster. And so we're combining self storage stats. So these are square feet per capita, rental rates, along with demographics. So people care about population growth, median household incomes, et cetera. And then as well as listings. So combining all those three data sets together to be able to do this really fast and intelligent search for listings that you care about. And so I can quickly walk you through our platform here. Right now, I went into our find deals section. Right now, I selected searching for listings, but also you can search for new submarkets or new trade areas, which I know Thaddeus, that's a big part of what you're looking for. But in this case, I'd love to show off the listings feature here at PropRise. And so let's just say we're interested in searching. You can search across the whole U.S., but let's just say we're interested in just the Sun Belt region. And what we're going to do is click the 3 miles option. So what that does is we're looking at every single listing we have on our platform in the Sun Belt, and then drawing a 3 mile circle around them, and then just comparing, hey, like within this 3 miles, like is the population where I want it to be? Is the demographics where I want it to be? The self storage stats, and if it is, then we'll present those listings to you. And so here we typically work with developers and who are looking at doing ground up development, but also some developers are interested in doing infill or tear down. So we have numerous options of listings you can look at. So I'll just assume we're doing ground up development and just looking at land. So I'll just save here,
Fitting
and
for
let's
me.
say we're yeah, and let's say we're interested in just 1 acre at the minimum, or 1 to 7 acres for land. And also, we have this powerful feature called Zone for Storage, where we tell you, hey, like this listing is also zoned for storage. That's a really powerful one that clients really love. I'm going to click on that, click save, and then quickly through. I'm going to go through these like demographics. So typically, our developers look at an area where they want in a 3 mile radius population to be growing by at least either flat or 1%, up to 30, and then population. I don't want a rural area, so maybe at least 30,000 people, and I'll keep the household income as is. And then here is the self storage stats. So the national average of square feet per capita is around a 7 to an 8. So folks are typically looking at an undersupplied market. So under a 7 is what folks typically look for. However, everyone's different. Every state and metro is different. You can find a great listing or a great opportunity with a 14 square feet per capita. Just caveating that. And so also I'll look at climate control here. So 10 by 10 rates within a 3 mile. I want that to be at least, let's make it a bit harder. Let's make it, I don't know, 160, 175, save. And I'll just hit apply. Oops, nothing popped up. I think that's because this is low. This might be too high. Save. Okay. So as you can see, one listing in Nashville popped up here, which sounds like a very little amount. But however, it went through 73,000 listings in the Sun Belt and found one that's zoned for self storage. It's at least 1 to 7 acres, and we're seeing the population here is at least almost 2%. Per capita is under a 10, and then climate control rates are 157. And so what we're doing here at PropRise is surfacing these needle in a haystack opportunities. And so yeah, we can loosen up the search to find more listings or more results. But I think the main power is identifying things that work for you almost instantly because of how tailored and focused your criteria can be. So I'll just click into this quickly to get a sense of the market. And so here we're on the outskirts of Nashville. We have the 3 mile circle, and all these purple dots are all existing self storage. And what we can see here is what the square foot per capita is again, the rental rates, and like the demographics we mentioned as earlier. And yeah, if you want to pursue this listing, you can just click open listing, and this will open up in the broker website or wherever we got the listing from. So that's essentially what we do at PropRise. We're able to put in your buy box, your criteria, and get even find the deals that actually make sense for you. So that's what the listings platform that is.
I'm going to tell you just from my perspective, right? Previous to using PropRise, the amount of time that I would have had to have spent to identify just an area to go look at that met the demographics that I want to have. It was insanity, right? You were playing darts at a map. You're kind of you would try and use some intelligence and say, hey, where's their growth? Where's their movement pattern going? Where do I think it makes sense to go look based on population growth? But then you got to go in and you got to look at, you got to go on Google Maps. You got to do a search for nearby self storage. You got to click on them. You got to look at them. You can use, Radius Plus or Yardi or whatever to go into those markets and see what their data is saying. Of course, lately, that data hasn't been the easiest to believe all the time. So what I liked about what PropRise did, you showed that circle where all the purple dots were other self-storage facilities. Well, I can click on those and I can go to, there was a CubeSmart there in Knoxville where that listing was. and I can see their rates. What I really appreciated is you show me the date that that rate was scraped,
Oh yeah.
right? Like it's
Yep.
July 7th. I don't want to have to wonder when this got pulled. If I see it's July 10th today, actually, as we're having this conversation, I want to know that it was July 8th that you pulled that information, right? I want to be able to know, okay, this was 2 days ago. This is what the rates look like. So I can make a decision whether or not to advance. Now I'm going to call Extra Space, I'm going to call CubeSmart, and I'm going to get them to give me more detailed information if I think the opportunity is worthwhile. But the more I can condense time getting to that conversation with them, the more opportunity to do a greater number of deals I have. And so that's what I thought was really powerful. I'm going to have you go back in for a minute. We got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
I try and keep this thing to
Let's
30
do it.
minutes all the time. I'd rather cut people off and keep them excited and have you come back on again. But what I want you to show people is the ability to go search for land, because I thought this was absolutely my favorite piece, right? So if you
Yeah.
go
Let me
back
show
in
you
and
that.
instead of listings, you go look at submarkets.
Let's do
This is the
submarkets.
piece where I thought it was crazy, right? And so you can keep it at the Sun Belt.
Yep.
Put it at rental rates. I right now, honestly, if they're not higher than $175 a month, I don't want to look. So put it at 175 for a 10 by 10. You don't have to go
Let's
too
try 200.
crazy.
Let's try 200. Thaddeus.
We could do that and see how many markets in this area, based on your recent scraping of the existing facilities that have rates published on the web, look how many markets are showing up. You got
So over.
250 markets in that
Yep.
area that meet the, you know what I'm going to have you do? I'm going to have you filter this down. Go back to demographics and let's
Yep.
just get stupid with median income. Let's say we're going to have a median income north of 80,000,
North of 80,000.
which
Let's
is
try it
which
out.
is significantly high. We're going to filter these markets down.
All right. Let's try it out. It's
With
not
that,
only 42 results.
so now what I can do is I can go call some brokers in these areas and say, hey, this is a market where my square foot per capita, look at Davidson, Murfreesboro, Franklin, Tennessee. By the way, everybody that's watching this, don't bother calling a broker in Davidson, Murfreesboro, because by the time this podcast airs, I'm going to already have anything that's available in that area locked up. I can go look at that market. I can make inroads with a broker, and I'm giving away my trade secrets. I really shouldn't do this, but in the interest of good karma, I'm going to do it. I can get into that market that I know pretty likely is going to facilitate being able to do a ground up facility.
Yep, exactly. It's really powerful. We wanted to reverse engineer the way that folks are finding deals, and this is exactly what you can do. Put it in your buy box. We'll tell you which areas in whatever city, a 3 mile ring that makes the most sense for you. And then this land tab now is actually really powerful.
It's phenomenal.
So before I was showing you facilities, and now I'm going to overlay the map with just land here. And so it's taking a second to load. But while this is loading, we're going to tell you what are the zoning codes for self-storage facilities in this circle, in this city. And we're telling you, hey, there's 2 facilities here that are zoned as CS. One of them is multi-zone. One of them is R15. And you can actually filter out all these vacant land parcels for the ones that have that zoning code. I'll just do that right here. And so now you can go forth and find actually and get actually contact some of these owners where you know if it's the right lot size, it's the right zoning code, it's in an area that I know because the rents are really high. It just dramatically improves how efficient you can be in finding and sourcing off market opportunities if that's what you're looking for.
Man, I'm always amazed when I introduce you to people, and I'll be quite frank, and they don't see the value in this as quickly as I did. Because again, it comes down to one simple thing. Do I want to spend 20 minutes trying to figure something out, or do I want to spend 2 minutes trying to figure something out? Right? That
Mm-hmm.
18 minutes is the most valuable commodity that I have in my life. So you could take it off share screen. I think we've shown the power of the tool. I like the I don't know if Eric's going to leave that piece in, but for those of you, if you do see it, you'll see the never ending pictures of Jean Michael and Thaddeus on Jean Michael's computer. Man, it's such a pleasure. We talk all the time, but really, really glad that we were able to get you on the podcast for a half hour. I speak from the heart. I love it. I think the platform is so powerful. I think it one of the things I really love about this, and I'm saying this not for you, but for people in the industry, is one of the things that happened during COVID is there were some and it's happened before COVID too, but not as clearly as it did during COVID. Is there are some areas of the country where a lot of projects started to be put under development, where things were getting overdeveloped very, very quickly. So one of the things I like about your tool is it avoids everyone going to, you talked about it. You go to meetups and you hear, hey, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And all of a sudden there are 5 new development facilities there because it was too difficult to go and identify those 3-mile radii that were suitable for storage. It was like, how do you find them? And now you have that tool where you can go and identify those 3-mile radii, and you don't have to follow the trend of what everyone else is doing. And I think in the long run, you talked about this at the beginning, this idea of self-storage as a family. And one of the
Mhm.
reasons people, this was something that Mike Burnham, Mount Rushmore of storage guys, Storage Mart CEO, president. I can't remember which title he has now, but been in the game since the early 70s. And he said, hey, I don't share information with the other guys just to help them. It helps them, but that's not the only reason I do it. I do it because when I share intelligent information with them, I keep them from making mistakes that eventually hurt my rates in my stores as
Wow.
well. So one of the things I love about your platform is I think it gives people an opportunity not to have to piggyback on the trend. We're seeing it in Orlando, Florida right now. Their rates have
Yeah.
dropped by 30% in the last year. Why? Well, everyone heard Orlando, right? And so everyone went and built in Orlando, and you got oversaturated very quick. Anyway, that was long-winded. Too much of me talking. Jean-Michel, people want to hear more about PropRise. They want to learn more about your platform. How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah. So folks can go to our website at www.proprise.io. It's a .io. .com is, we're not able to afford that yet. Coming soon. Or you can also you can find us on LinkedIn. So Jean-Michel Diei. I know it's a very complicated name, but I'm sure we'll be here on the
It's
podcast.
scrolling down below. Don't worry.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, so please hit me up anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions pertaining to self storage, AI, anything in between. And Thaddeus, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome
Oh,
talking to you.
absolutely my pleasure. Any of you have any trouble getting a hold of PropRise and want to get a hold of them, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'm easy to find. It's pretty simple. I hope if you're watching this podcast, you know how to get a hold of me at this point. Look forward to having that conversation and introducing you to these guys. As always, if you got something of value out of this episode, please click the like button, give us a comment, tell us what you thought. If you think I talk too much, don't say that because I already know it's not going to mean anything anyway. Hit the subscribe button so you get updates all the time on when we're having new guests on the podcast. Jean-Michel, again, thanks. Look forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Thank you, Thaddeus. Appreciate it.
And that's it for this week's episode of Self Storage Made Simple. We'll see you guys next week.